so the whole story of the flood and everything, they tie in the whole story from Genesis and all the way to Revelation, and they even have some exhibits and stuff that are really good for even like having conversations with people and some of the stuff that's happening cultural and how does that line up with a biblical worldview. So it was we loved it. We weren't able to do the Creation Museum. We were wanting to, and just it didn't work out that day. But so I will say, if you go to art, it's a cool experience. My family really enjoyed it. It is big.
Where's that at?
It's in Kentucky, and so yeah.
Huntsville,
and so.
Huntsville,
I'm not sure exactly. I can't remember. That's the first time I've ever been, but
it's east of Lexington.
Yeah, we're really close to Lexington.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. Get the opportunity. So a little bit more about me. So I'm married. We've been married for 18 years. We're actually high school sweethearts. Started dating in 10th grade. Funny thing is, when I was in 4th grade, I actually broke a ring finger and didn't know it. So now I tell people that I was saving it. I was reserving ring finger. Proud papa. I've got a 12-year-old daughter, Caitlin, and then Parker and Cooper are 10 and 7. And so, anyways, that's just a little about me. So obviously we're talking about health and wellness and freedom and health and wellness, and so just a little bit about my perspective. And I know y'all probably can't see this, but if you want to, you can come look at some of my before pictures. So I've kind of had my own journey. I know that's a big bash, but I think the bash is jealous of me in the picture.
Let me. Oh.
There, yeah.
Oh.
So,
you were real heavy?
Yeah, I was, yes.
Really?
Most of my adult life, I was heavy. I was up to 300 pounds was where I spent most of my adult life, was right around 300 pounds. And, this is spiritual church, so we can talk about things in here too. But, sometimes, when you feel bad about yourself, you're not healthy, it affects your brain. And, I've struggled with alcohol in the past and stuff like that, and that can lead to being overweight. I mean, being free and health is not just what you put in your mouth, you know what I mean? And it's not just mindsets that you have, and it's the things that we are exposed ourselves to, toxins and thoughts and traumas can all affect our health. As a chiropractor, we believe that the body that made the body can heal the body. We tend to look at things as a more naturalistic approach, and I'm just really excited because I think we're seeing a shift back to more naturalistic medicine. We've gone all the pills and drugs and everything, and we've gone through the whole COVID hurricane, which is like kind of exposed maybe some areas in the medical system that like don't quite make sense, or maybe that we could maybe revert back to some more naturalistic things. And so we're going to cover a few of those between nutrition, exercise, and some stuff like that. First of all, let's talk about nutrition. And so I love it, you come and talk about health and wellness, everyone's like scared, like what they're going to put on the plate, Listen, I'm not crazy, hardcore. I mean, like I said, I spent most of my life at 300 pounds, so I like to eat, right? But what I would want to encourage you guys to do is, I want you to encourage to start looking at your food as your medicine. And really, if you can, you went through the 80s, and then all of a sudden fast food became so cheap and convenient, and then the processed foods. Well, somewhere along the way, corporations and lobbying groups really helped kind of dictate where the FDA went and stuff. And so a lot of times the recommendations we have aren't really what's healthiest for us. It's kind of what has been bought and paid for, and that is unfortunately the reality of it. And you can research it. It's all right there. You can go back and you can look at Coca-Cola and some of the lobbying groups that they did to try to get the FDA to pin fats as the problem, and really sugar is really the issue. Okay. One thing I also, my story with the weight loss, and this was even just several years ago, that I was 300 pounds, and I was like, I just got to the point where being overweight, my blood pressure high, my liver had fatty liver. When I got my liver scanned, they said up to 90% of my liver had been fatty, and I needed to make changes.
What fatty liver come from?
Fatty liver, it comes from poor health style choices. Alcohol can contribute to that. Sugar can contribute to that. And so even just losing 10 pounds can actually help your body, your liver start to heal itself. And so God made our liver to be ultra resilient. And so as long as you stop in time, there are things that your body can restore itself. And And so I started losing weight. So the first thing I did was cut out alcohol, and that dropped me probably 20 pounds right there. And the sugar that goes along with that. We were just talking to Simone, talking about I actually ate salads. And listen, I don't want to step on toes here, but I'm going to tell you what's worked for me and what I've seen with the trend I see going on. So I was eating salads every day, like 4 months, and I had my salad in the office, and I had like ham and stuff on it. It was fine. I lost some weight. I had started exercising, but I reached a plateau, and for me, a big breakthrough came. We were just talking about this. Finally, one day I'm sitting there eating my salad. I'm hungry and I'm cranky. And I'm like, and so I was like, I'm going to go to Publix, I'm going to get a rotisserie chicken, I'm going to eat as much of it as I want to. And that's exactly what I did, and it was delicious. I remember like eating that chicken, I was like, oh, I feel so good. And anyway, that day, literally that day, from that day on, for like the next 2 years straight, almost every day at work, I would eat half a rotisserie chicken. And so I started with protein, increased my energy. So getting healthy protein, I'm not saying you need to go eat half a rotisserie chicken every day. That's not what I'm saying. But I started getting the protein, and then I started getting really great results in the gym. Ended up losing 70 pounds. Ended up becoming really in the best shape of my life as an adult. Like I've always been heavy, even as a kid. And so after talking in here, I'm going to detour a little bit from my presentation, so just wing with me a little bit. But if you are interested in some foods that I found very helpful, and when you are working at something, no matter what it is you do, whatever your profession is, you really tend to hone in on things. Well, my weight loss journey was about a 2-year journey. And like you really start to hone in on things. You really are like researching what's working here, what's working there. And for me, some foods that like I eat almost on a daily basis are eggs, hard-boiled eggs, or just any kind of eggs. Eggs are fantastic for you, okay? I do want to touch on this idea. My mom's a dietitian. She kind of grew up in the old school thought, and people were worried about eggs and cholesterol and all this stuff. And there's actually some really interesting. If you start going to look at where that started, like even going back to I think it was the 40s when they were in an egg shortage, and the government didn't want to freak people out. They're in an egg shortage, and they started putting a warning label on them for cholesterol. And then even now, like you'll see articles, and like I'm convinced at some point that like they're like this world wants to be sick and dependent on their stuff. You know what I mean? They want to be addicted to their foods and their medications and all that. And it is funny because like you hear, you eat, like I was looking at, some of these popular news places, and I love when people get a screenshot, and they'll have like one article, makes it great for your heart, and then another article, next year, you eat for your heart. Like, it's ridiculous. Well, listen, if you go back and look at the research, and you can do retroactive studies where you can actually do studies of all the studies that have been done. And what they found is people that ate 2 eggs more a day had dramatically decreased cardiovascular issues. Yes, absolutely, than those who didn't eat eggs at all, okay? And so eggs, something I try to eat between like 3 and 6 eggs a day. I was just talking to Simone, whose brother had issues. He had cancer, yeah, and he switched his diet. He eats about 6 to 9 eggs a day, and protein and salmon and all this stuff, and he's doing great. And the doctor told him, "Hey, keep doing what you're doing, right?" And so here's where it comes down to. Let me tell you a little bit about cholesterol. Okay, so cholesterol, for the longest time, we saw, okay, people get plaque and they have heart attacks or have these issues. Oh, what do we see in the body? We see high cholesterol. Oh, so that must be the problem. Well, the way Western medicine works is we develop these drugs and these compounds that do certain things to our lab work values, right? So then it was like, okay, well, cholesterol's high. Well, we know we give them this, that lowers that number. So let's give them this. So we started doing that. But guess what? That was not the issue. And it's funny, chiropractors are more on the naturalistic side, and I've shared this story earlier as well. So I remember my older brother's an ER doctor, okay? And so I actually come from, my great-granddad was an osteopath, my granddad was a radiologist. My dad actually was going to go to med school, but did not go to school back in the 70s because he thought Jesus was coming back. And he's like, I ain't messing with that. And so, honestly, though, I kind of feel the same way right now. So he was the oddball out. Most of my other family are some type of doctor. Like home was a chiropractor. My brother's physical therapist. And so, but I remember talking to him about cholesterol, and I'm like, well, Rob, did you know that what the latest research actually shows is that it's not about having high cholesterol or dietary cholesterol. What they found is, yes, they're finding these people that have the strokes or heart attacks and plaquing with the high cholesterol. But what they're finding is the cholesterol is actually a response to inflammation in the body.
Absolutely.
And so our body releases cholesterol as a way to go heal those areas up. Okay? But here's the thing. So what was happening is you had chronic inflammation. So you're having chronic elevated cholesterol. And so their answer was, take these low cholesterols and don't eat stuff like eggs, right? It was wrong. I mean, it was flat out wrong, particularly when it comes to eggs. So what they now know is that dietary cholesterol is much less. It's not really even a factor when we're talking about your risks for cardiovascular stuff and plaquing, and then having it's really having elevated cholesterol is not because necessarily you're just eating too much cholesterol. It's because you have so much inflammation that your body has in there to try to fix it. And so,
well, your dietary cholesterol, is that the good cholesterol? Because there's both good and bad, correct?
yeah, well, it's actually pretty funny. Some of the information that's coming out on the LDL and all that stuff now. So, stay tuned on that in the next few years. Right? Yeah.
Can we hold our questions?
Yeah, I'll do some questions that
I was going to say one question.
yeah.
It was just that, for me, when I heard about cholesterol for years, I stopped buying egg white.
Yeah.
And I used to buy egg white do my cholesterol.
Yeah.
And I learned.
Yeah.
I was to know why eat two eggs, that's protein.
Yes. And the other misconception was that eggs was just protein. Well, here's the thing. The yolk of the eggs are loaded with selenium and zinc and things that are so good for not only our immune system, but are very anabolic in helping you maintain muscle tissue and building muscle. And so I have, that has been something that, I had to, really talk to my mom. So my mom's a dietitian. But she hasn't, she hasn't been in continuing education in 30 years, but that is something that I want to encourage you, to do. If you want to do some homework on, you'll see, the dietary cholesterol is not as big of a deal. It's really the cholesterol that is being released from the inflammation. So, then the matter becomes addressing the inflammation. Well, guess what causes inflammation? It's the sugar. Sugar causes inflammation, right? And so that's really, if you had to war on something, it's not necessarily, and this is the same thing too. You hear all this stuff about meat and red meat and this and that. I disagree with that. Okay, and I know I might step on toes in here, and I'm not trying to do that. But it's really the sugar. The sugar was causing inflammation. The inflammation caused the release of cholesterol. And if sugar were, there's so many conditions and people that die. I mean, I can remember it was 400,000 people, this was a few years ago, die every year in the United States of stuff directly related to sugar. And I think it's much higher when you start incorporating some of the heart disease and stuff that they know now is linked to the sugar. So the sugar is definitely the thing to watch out for. The other thing is preservatives, okay? It's amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen.
What is it?
Preservatives.
Preservatives.
Yeah, and so just eating processed food. And so if you even look at other countries, if you go to Europe and everything, you look at their ingredient list of ketchup, for example. And our ingredient list is 4 times longer than theirs, And I have patients all the time who will go to Europe, they go everything, they instantly lose 15 pounds. They're like, look, I'm eating the same food, I'm doing all this stuff, but it's literally just all the extra preservatives and junk that's in our food. So the 2 biggest takeaways that I would say for me was for the bad guys is sugar and processed foods. If I can make one recommendation, eating whole foods is going to be healthy, but for me, it really was emphasizing protein, okay? Protein supports your muscles, okay? We've all heard that you lose muscle as you age, right? Has everyone heard that?
Yeah.
Now, that is partially true. However, it doesn't have to be true, okay?
Amen.
They have done studies. They took triathletes in their 30s, and they took triathletes in their 60s, okay? And what they did is they did MRI scans of their legs and stuff like that. And what they did is they took a normal 30-year-old and a triathlete 30-year-old, and a normal 60-year-old and a triathlete 60-year-old. And what they found is for the normies, the people who weren't actively trained or whatever, saw significant muscle loss, right? But those that maintained training and kept training, their leg muscle mass would almost look identical to a 30-year-old. And they've also have found research. There was an article published where they actually did this with people in their upper 50s, and they wanted to see if somebody who had been basically sedentary and developed their own cardiovascular issues, where they did a real intense study of the heart, see how efficient the heart was and everything. and they put them through a protocol of consistent exercise over the course of 2 years. And what they found is that they were able to basically reduce the effective age of the heart significantly by like over 50%. Reduce it, and that's just by the consistent exercise. So it literally is use it or lose it, right? But here's the good news is even if you have not, like, well, I wasn't doing triathlons when I was 30, and even if you've had a sedentary lifestyle, these studies show that you can make improvement not only in maintaining muscle, but also really with the cardiovascular stuff. And so we'll get into the training here in a second. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to talk about nutrition. Diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, reduces the risk of chronic disease. I don't eat very many vegetables, and I'm not saying I'm not promoting that. I need to eat more. We talked about the juicing. I like juicing as a form of getting vegetables. For me, it's about protein and fruit. So I really camp out there. I eat a lot of chicken. Sweet potatoes, for a while I was eating sweet potato every day. So sweet potatoes have about 100 calories before you put anything on. So that's a fantastic, and they have the fiber and everything in them. So that's a fantastic food to eat. Avocados, I try to eat avocado every single day. Avocados have the healthy fats in them that help you feel full, but they also are loaded with potassium too. They're a great source of potassium. So avocados is great. I already mentioned the eggs. I'm telling you, one other story I'll say about the eggs and how impactful they are. Like back before they had the synthetic steroid, if they had a burn victim in the hospital, they literally would feed them like 36 eggs. Like they would just eat them nothing but eggs because they would act as a natural steroid. Wow. And so, and then they came up with a synthetic version, and now they do that. But it is interesting to go back and see, like, you know, they why there's a war on eggs, I'm telling you, I don't know. We're seeing a lot of things, right? I think a lot of people's eyes are opening up to through the whole COVID experience, like about some of these systems and intuition systems aren't really designed for our best interest, and there's other agendas and other factors at play. But the other thing, let's see, any other thing? Nuts are great. Greek yogurt is phenomenal. Greek yogurt, I have Greek yogurt for breakfast, Greek yogurt for lunch, Greek yogurt for snack. So it's a really great source of protein. And it's very easily digestible, and so I'm a real big fan of Greek yogurt as well. Okay, so exercising. So regular exercise can reduce the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and some cancers. Okay. The interesting thing is, I just read an article a couple weeks ago about cancer, and they even showed like a little bit in the bone and then also in the muscle, I believe, is the strain from exercising actually killed the cancer cells. Wow. And that's like a whole new thing that
the strain of exercise do what?
Can show to kill cancer cells. Now, I'm not sure, more research should be done. I'm not sitting here saying that you got cancer, like any kind of cancer, but they just said the strain in the muscle of actually treating the body to kill cancer cells. So that was actually really interesting. Exercise also strengthens bones, helps you maintain muscle mass, and enhances mental health. Okay? The mental health side of exercise gets lost every day, all day. There's an actor, and he's not a great actor. I mean, I'm trying to say his name. He's a comedian, but a lot of his stuff is not great. But I saw an interview with him, and he was very overweight. And his mom and people used to tell him to hey, you need to exercise. And he, in his mind, he was like, oh, well, you don't accept me for who I am and all this garbage, right? That's in his mind. That's an excuse not to exercise, right? Well, he gets to a point where he gets so fed up. We all get that point, right? We let our health go, and then sometimes we wake up and we're like, okay, this cannot continue, right? So he starts exercising, had dramatic weight loss, and he's sitting there in an interview. He's like, I wish somebody would have told me that the exercise was just important for my mental health as it is for my physical health. And that is absolutely true. I mean, exercise is just as important mentally, literally just as important mentally as it is physically, okay? And so, yes, it helps with your brain, gives you optimism, it releases different hormones, and makes you feel motivated, makes you feel good about the serotonin, makes you feel good about where you're going, and being it's those positive decisions build momentum. That's a real thing, okay? And so, definitely make sure to include the exercise. Now, here's the thing. So the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise per week, okay? And so 150, so that's 30 minutes 5 times a day, right? It is important to, you don't want to just go in and overdo, okay, he said exercise, and then you just, go all out, right? Actually build yourself up, okay? Has anyone done races in here and everything? Anyone? Okay, so we got So believe it or not, my first race ever was a half marathon. My buddy conned me into doing it. He tricked me into doing it, all right? Half a marathon, yeah. And it was funny because we used to play football together. We were both linemen. He lost all his weight, became a runner, and he convinced me to do it. And I said, the only way I'm going to do it is if you have one of those 13.1 stickers for me at the end, whatever. But here's the thing. You want to include resistance training, okay? Cardiovascular training is great. It will not necessarily help you with all the things as far as like building muscle and some of those things that are so crucial, where doing moderate intensity strength training exercise, not only will you get those benefits and the bone density and all that stuff, but you'll also get the cardiovascular benefits with it. So make sure that you're including it. For me, if I had to choose one, it would be strength training, okay? But you do want to mix in, both forms of exercise. They both have clear, defined things, but I think what gets lost in the mix is the strength training. Everyone's doing aerobics and all that stuff, and that's great. Now, listen, strength training can be body weight. You know what I mean? It can be simple body weight, simple bands. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you want that resistance training, okay? The resistance training. A little side note, too, about the losing the muscle. You don't just lose muscle like over the whole body. Specifically, it's certain areas that tend to lose it more. One of the areas that tends to lose the most is your knee stabilizers, okay? And that's why as people get more wobbly in the feet as they age, right? And so, and if you're just doing aerobics and stuff, you might not be getting the full bend and everything to really strengthen those knee stabilizers, okay? So, doing some one-legged stuff now, be safe, if you need doctor recommendations on that, do what your body can. Start where you can, but the important thing is to start. Like, you're not too far gone, no matter where you are, to make some healthy decisions to improve where you're going to be tomorrow, right? The decisions we make today are going to determine where we are tomorrow, so we can make some simple, healthy things, and so start exercise wherever you can. All right, sleep. All right. Now, who gets between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night? Here. A couple people? Okay. So sleep is kind of the prerequisite. Like, if you want to improve your health, like, everything we're talking about, like, is almost secondary to getting the proper sleep. Because if you don't get proper sleep, you're not going to recover like you're supposed to. You're not going to be able to get rid of the stress hormones like you're supposed to. Like, sleep is kind of the prerequisite, okay? So if you had to focus on one thing, it'd be about getting consistent, healthy sleep, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about sleep here in a second, because I'm going to talk to you about something I am excited about, and I think this might be new information for y'all that I think will be interesting. So here we go. So I'm going to talk about something that I have been super excited about, and this is partly because I have been a huge skeptic of it. And my eyes have been opened, and the more I learn about the human body, I'm just amazed by God and His creation on how He's made us. So I entitled this next section, Let There Be Light, okay? Wow. And so I want to talk a little bit about the importance of sunlight and the importance of light and how it actually works in our body. And there's a couple things. Albert Einstein had said a long time ago that basically all living creatures, like the whole world was basically composed of, like, we're made of light. And I don't know, that seemed weird to me, right? And so I'm late to the party on this, but our bodies emit light. Our bodies absolutely emit light. But before I get into that stuff, I'm going to talk about the sunlight. Okay. So some practical tips that will make a drastic improvement that you can do right now is, within an hour of waking up in the morning, get natural sunlight in your eyes. Get natural sunlight on your skin and in your eyes. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the sunlight, okay? So sunlight is crucial for regulating your circadian rhythm, enhancing mood and overall health. Okay, circadian rhythm. Everyone familiar with circadian rhythm? That's how our body flows. That's our time clock, okay? So all of our cells have clocks, 24-hour clocks, okay? And we're designed to have our natural wake and sleep cycle, and that's called our circadian rhythm, okay? It really regulates every process in our bodies dependent on that circadian rhythm. But each part of our cell has its own clock in there, and there's different things that trigger it. And so, like, when you go on a flight, for example, if you go fly several hours, you have jet lag, and then sometimes you might have, like, upset stomach and stuff like that. And you're like, what did that happen? That's actually because your clock's out of whack, okay? And so that's when they get when they start functioning off times, we get those things that happen with the upset stomach and all that thing. As our bodies are trying to adapt to the new daylight that we're in, the new time zone, right? And so incorporating natural light into your daily routine can help improve sleep, boost mood, enhance overall well-being, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more, okay? So when we wake up in the morning, or that early light, okay, everyone's heard, like, I don't know, I shouldn't say everyone, but like, you know, who's heard that blue light is bad? Is it blue light? Has anyone heard that? You heard blue light? Okay. Well, here's the thing. Blue light is great for us at the right time. At the right time, okay? Blue light at the wrong time, like late at night, can be very disruptive, okay? And so when the sun, when we get the most amount of natural blue light, it's in the early in the morning and in the evening, okay? And so as the sun's coming up on the horizon, we're getting that blue light, okay? And then as the sun comes up, that's when then we get more yellows and everything. It's not such there's a different ratio of blue light to yellow light and everything, okay? And so what happens is that blue light triggers cells in our body that gets an increase in cortisol, what you want in the first thing, because we all have a cortisol spike, 24 hours, one time 24 hours. We all have the same cycle. But what we want to do is we want to sync that up in the morning because that gets all our clocks working at the same time, okay? And so getting that early day exposure increases cortisol release, which preps the body for sleep later in the day and positively influences the immune system, metabolism, and focus, okay? Afternoon sunlight serves as a second anchor for our body for that circadian cycle. Afternoon sunlight, particularly the evening sunlight, starts to trigger our brain to wind down for the day, okay? Then we start getting our natural release of melatonin in the body, okay? And so the early morning light and the evening light are two anchor points that our body fixated on that really help regulate our internal clock, okay? And so that was something that I was not really familiar with, and I started doing it. So the interesting thing is, like, I like to stay up late. Like, I'm not a great morning person. I'm learning to become a better morning person. But there's been studies that have shown, like, your natural clock, like if you were to go to bed and wake up, like what time you naturally wake up without an alarm set or anything, the number one determining factor that they found about when you will wake up wasn't necessarily how late you stayed up and all this stuff. It was literally how early you got light into your eyes when you woke up. And that started your clock, and it specifically for the 3 previous days. Okay. So they went back and they found that when you got light in your eyes, like, and I'm talking like brighter light, like not waking up and being on your phones and stuff isn't going to do it. In fact, a lot of people fall into the trap of they wake up, they get on their phones, they keep it, maybe they're in pajamas until about noon, and then they get outside. Well, then what happens is, then they get exposed to natural light, and they get their cortisol boost later in the afternoon, which is also associated with depression. Okay, so when you get that cortisol spike later in the day, it's actually, that's one of the clinical signs that they look for in depression that coincides with that later release of cortisol. So we're designed to have that cortisol release in the morning. So a couple tips on that. Okay, so between 5 and 20 minutes of sunlight. Now we live in Florida, so we don't need as much. There's people that live further north, it's a little bit harder for them. It should be easiest for us to get our natural light. Okay, if it's a nice bright day, just 5 minutes. Now look, we're not going out and looking at the sun. Okay, so don't go in there and say, Dr. Price said, look at the sun. No. But you do, but you don't want a couple things, like not wearing sunglasses, okay? Unfortunately, driving a car with windshields and stuff like that, that actually blocks a lot of the photon stuff out, and it's not bright enough, okay? And so what you do want is, so what I try to do is get up in the morning first thing, and I just go for a little walk, okay? And like, walk early in the morning does so much for you. Like, if you had to incorporate one new habit that everyone can start tomorrow, is to try to get up in the morning and do a 10-minute walk, okay? You're getting the light, you're getting the exercise, you're getting the blood flow, it's going to increase mood, it's going to help with bone density, and it's going to help with your internal clock rhythm, okay? Let me see here. All right, regular exposure to natural light improves mood and reduces symptoms of depression and anxiety. I already touched on that, okay? Sunlight exposure boosts the production of serotonin and dopamine, hormones linked to mood and motivation. That's how it specifically does that, okay? All right, daytime. So bright light in the morning and early afternoon facilitates the release of dopamine, norepinephrine, and cortisol, enhancing alertness and focus. Okay, so also alertness and focus. Dimming lights in the afternoon helps transition to body sleep. So we already covered some of this. Okay, so the blue light. Okay, so go back to the blue light. Okay, so as the sun goes down, your body starts to wind down, our melatonin's getting released. Bright light can inhibit those processes, okay? And that's where the blue light can be a problem, specifically between 10 at night and 4 in the morning, okay? That's when we really want to try to limit the amount of blue light we have, you know? And so listen, you know, we all stay up and do things here and there, but we're just trying to stay 80% on, right? 80% on, where you're getting that good sleep, you're avoiding those blue light late. That's going to do a number for your health and keep your body in rhythm and on cycle, okay? Yes?
I don't understand about the blue light. I don't understand that.
So the blue light, it activates different parts of your brain that basically make your body want to be more awake, and then it stops those processes that help us sleep, like melatonin and stuff like that. And so red lights, so some people will actually use red lights in their house in the evening. Like, you could use any red light, like just any kind of red light. It doesn't have to be like a fancy, expensive red light. It could be like red Christmas lights. But like, if you have to get up and use the restroom in the morning, you want to keep the light as low as possible that you can see. You want to, you want to make sure you're safe, but you do want to avoid having that light, the bright lights, as you go to sleep there. All right. Another thing, so exposure to sunlight on the skin specifically increases testosterone, estrogen, and libido in both men and women. So there you go. So I mean, just another benefit of getting the sunlight, okay? And that brings me actually to something else. And so like I said, the whole light thing is like a newer concept to me. And I saw a video the other day. Did you know that when in reproduction, when the sperm enters the egg cell, that the egg cell actually releases light? So scientists have discovered, now this is crazy, So it releases light, and they couldn't figure out why. Well, they finally figured out, okay, it's a release of zinc, and this is causing this little burst of light, but they have no idea why. They have no idea why. It's interesting that we're finding more and more stuff. And then here's the other thing that is interesting. The hydrogen bonds in our DNA, the DNA is what makes us up, right? Our DNA is what makes us up. There's actually light that gets emitted from that DNA bond. Now, listen, it's not all like visible light. Like, it's infrared light, okay? So, like, if we go out, if you have night vision, like, if I'm sitting here, I can't see you in the dark, but if I have night vision, I can see you because your body's producing heat and light, okay? But it's infrared light, okay? And so that leads me to one of the last things I'll talk about. And so every now and then, as a chiropractor, we get introduced to products and technology and stuff, and some of them catch your attention. This one definitely caught my attention. And so David Schmidt, has, he's been basically dedicated his whole life to like anti-aging scientific research, okay? He's developed 130 patents and specialized in age reversing, okay? In 2008, he started really focusing on stem cells, okay? Does everyone know what a stem cell is? So stem cells are cells in our body that basically are responsible for helping repair, regenerate. Stem cells, there's different types of stem cells. You have some stem cells that are tissue specific, like stem cells in your stomach, and then you have other stem cells that literally can become whatever it needs to be, right? And so a couple of things you can do. There's actually some studies that show that blueberries can actually help with some stem cell production. Fasting for 24 hours can stimulate stem cells in your GI tract and your stomach. And so, there's a lot of people that suggest fasting once a week for 24 hours, or at least, once a month, and make that a part of your routine. Obviously there's immense spiritual benefits to fasting, okay? And that's like a whole other topic that I won't get into right now, right? But the spiritual benefits are incredible, but it actually stimulates your body. So it gives your stomach and your GI system a break and allows them to start healing itself, and one of the things it does is it activates stem cell. But in 2008, he started really focusing on stem cells, and he has created a couple things about stem cells. So by the time you're at age 30, about half of your stem cells are active, half have gone dormant, okay? By the time you get to 60, you only have about 10%. Your stem cells are still there, but they're almost completely dormant, okay? Yes, and so you lose that activity. However, what they have found is that with certain wavelengths, that will actually help your body produce something called copper peptides. So that's just something in the cells, and those copper peptides actually help wake up your stem cells, okay? And so when you wake up the stem cells, anything can happen. I mean, it can help with heart, it can help with brain function, it can help with skin. And so he developed a patch called LifeWave patch, and this is something that was introduced to me. I had first heard about it a couple years ago. A patient had told me about it. So this is new technology, came out in 2020. a couple years ago, so a patient mentioned to me about it, but I didn't really look at it. But then I kept hearing about it. I'm like, wait, there must be something to it. Then I talked to my pastor in Dallas, and he was like, Ryan, like, you've got to take a look at this. This is incredible. My wife and I have been on it. This was happening to us. And so, anyways, I started looking into it, and I'm like, this is remarkable. And so what it is this is a patch that that you put on the back of your neck, you put it on your body, and what it does, it actually, nothing goes in your body. It's not a transdermal patch, nothing goes in your body. What it does, it actually reflects those light waves and the heat from your body and those cells, and it goes back into your skin. And in that, when it goes back to your skin, that wavelength is proven to increase those peptides, which wakes up your stem cells. And so it is absolutely incredible. You know, this is something that that I have just been starting to introduce to my patients and getting great results. I mean, and one thing, I was talking to one lady who was 82 years old, and she got it, and interesting enough, she lost 20 pounds. I'm like, but these aren't weight loss patches. And she's like, I lost 20 pounds of inflammation. And I was like, 20 pounds of inflammation? Wow, you know. But I've seen phenomenal stories of skin improving. I've seen, I saw, you know, stories of a girl with MS who's like walking with a cane for 16 years. And within 3 months in the patch, was able to start wearing high heels. She can even jump rope now. And so I'm super excited about this. And here's what I love about it. It's nothing that we're putting in the body. We're literally reflecting what's already inside of us. You know what I mean? And reflecting and just like tuning in. The guy that created it is a Christian, and he talks about the mathematical codes we find in the Bible are the same that we find in nature. And he feels like God has given him, like helping him kind of crack the code on a substance that reflects the light back into our body just to help support our natural immune system and help that way. And so that is something I am very excited about. And I do have, if you want to see anything, you can see more of that there. I do have some patches with me. If you're interested, I can give you some links and everything for that. But bottom line is this. It's never too late to start anything. It's never too late to start a new healthy habit, okay? A couple of takeaways that if I could just kind of summarize everything, you know, you're not going to lose eating whole foods, okay? Eating a whole food diet. Getting up and getting some light in your eyes within an hour of waking up, okay? Exercising, you know, so a quick way, like I said, going for a walk in the morning is so healthy on so many different levels. It's more than just a walk. It's more just something, it literally is synergistic to get your body's mechanisms functioning like they should, okay? I definitely echo Dr. Ben, like, our bodies are amazingly designed machines, okay? If we feed it properly, if we limit the toxins that we're exposed to, and by the way, like, I think we're waking up and realizing, like, you know, there's been a sharp decrease in fertility across the world, and reproduction, all this stuff, and now they're really starting to link a lot of it to, like, plastics, and they're starting to link a lot of it to, like, these oils that we've been cooking with, and they're realizing, like, this is not great for our bodies, you know? And so the more naturalistic we can be, I think that is very helpful. Think of food as your medicine. If your dog were to eat the same foods and the same snacks and the same Cokes and the same everything else, what do you think their health would look like? Right? But if you were to feed that same dog a healthy, whole body, you know what I mean? I know dogs eat a little bit different than what they can break down, but, like, I mean, it's a simple concept. I mean, if I put Coca-Cola in my dog's water bowl and she gets sick, I'm not going to be that surprised, am I? You know, and so limit the sugar, limit the preservatives, and find exercise, healthy sleep. Like I said, all healthy sleep. Watch what you put in your mouth, and get that sunlight, right? And so with that, I can take any questions or anything like that. And so, does anybody have any questions or anything? And listen, I'm going to do the best I can to point you in the right direction, and if I step on anyone's toes, like, obviously I'm not a vegetarian, and I believe very strongly in eating meat, but we can have side conversations with you.
Okay, what color eggs are healthy? Some of the brown eggs are healthy, others are weak.
So listen, I have heard that the brown eggs have the darker yolks, and they're supposed to have more nutrients and everything, and I believe that's the case, but, like, for me, like, losing weight, like, I just eat eggs. You know what I mean? And so, like, I will say one thing, and we were talking earlier, I go from Costco, they have hard-boiled eggs that come like a pack of 24, and they come in 2 packs. I love those for convenience. Now listen, they're not nearly as good as making my own hard-boiled eggs. Sometimes I'm like, they taste like rubber, but they're, no, they're not that bad. But I use those all the time because that's convenient, okay? Simone was asking me about how I eat eggs. One thing that I do like is everything but the bagel seasoning. Everything but the bagel seasoning is phenomenal on eggs. It's phenomenal on avocado toast too. So that's something so that everything but the bagel is a great seasoning. Yeah, it's like and the thing at Walmart might be everything bagel. I think at Publix it's everything but the bagel, but something like that. Yeah.
Okay, another question. I don't use white sugar, but I use honey. So what's the difference?
Okay, so honey's actually interesting. Honey does not affect the body nearly as bad as sugar does. The mechanism that it's absorbed, it actually doesn't. So when you eat sugar, you get a sugar spike. The sugar spike's really what kills us. That's really what does the damage. Honey is a much, much better alternative to it. Here's another tip too. In your meals, eat protein first. Eat protein first. Okay, so when you eat the protein first, that gets your body. So I want you to think about in your intestines and in your GI tract, you have almost like little hands that are absorbing the nutrients, right? And so if you're eating like a sugar, man, it's just like boom, 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 and they just suck up that sugar, and you get a big blood sugar spike, and that's what triggers all these harmful effects.
Okay.
When you eat something like protein first, or some healthy fats or avocados first, now guess what? They're eating that stuff, so the sugar comes in, and so they're grabbing the sugar while they're grabbing other things, but you get a slower absorption, so you don't get that sugar spike. So that is actually a very simple tip too. So that's one thing that I will do at a meal is I'll focus on eating healthy fats and protein first. Another thing I do is if my wife is cooking pasta, we don't do that a ton, and not that pasta but what I'll do is I'll try to eat either some of my rotisserie chicken that I always have or my hard-boiled eggs just a little bit before, and so that way I'm not just going so hard on the carbohydrates, and so that is something that helps as well. Yes. Yes, and so, it's really interesting, and I need to look, because the peptides has become kind of a hot topic lately. So they had peptides that were available, and then they started trying to pull them off the market, and it's they want to control certain things,
Absolutely.
It's a whole other conversation. What I like about the stem cell patches is it naturally increases your own natural copper peptides, which stimulate things. And so, and all it is, the patent that they have, it's a combination of organic salt and sugar in such a combination that it reflects a certain wavelength of light that activates those copper peptides. But you used to be able to get injections of peptides, and they were like, oh my gosh, peptides are these amazing things. And then they really started trying to regulate this stuff. And so now that has become like my pastor. They had him on peptides, and it's helping him a lot, and now they took it off where they can't get what he was getting before, and now, and so that we actually just started on the patch this 2 weeks ago, as a way to try to help with that. Yeah.
What about, I buy yogurt, but I don't use gluten. What's the difference?
So, listen, I'm not an expert on yogurt. I will say, some people that have lactose issues and everything, what I have found is Greek yogurt has the higher protein content. And so for me, getting the protein content, and listen, I might disagree. I don't even know where Dr. Ben stands on but I will get the light Greek yogurt from Walmart, and it's the Live Good brand for 90 calories. It's 14 grams of protein, and so they might have some different debates on what sweeteners. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to interject here on several things. And I'm not necessarily a doctor and all that kind of thing, but I've been researching and studying for probably over 20 years. And so when it comes to the eggs, when you hear about the different kinds of eggs, okay, and the different color, you can find, and I have a very close friend that have chickens, and she has different ones, and because you have different kinds of chickens. And they'll produce, some of them produce eggs with the yolk is darker, and some produce with the yolk is a little bit lighter. So some of that has to do with the kind of chicken, like I don't know if you want to call it the brand or whatever, but the kind of chicken, okay? Also, the other part of it, when you go to factory produced eggs, there's several holistic doctors, researchers out there that are saying it's to a degree a money thing, So because people all of a sudden they want to go for the brown eggs, right? And because they think the brown eggs are healthier. And so they've actually found that they, just like they add whatever they do to your meat to make it redder, so it supposedly look healthier, they're doing some of that with the eggs as well. What they are suggesting is pasteurized eggs, and if you can get organic, are going to be the healthiest. That's what they're suggesting. Because the pasteurized eggs are the ones that are out in the pasture. And they're wandering around, eating worms and bugs, and not necessarily. I love the vegetarian eggs. And I was eating them for years until I realized that they got this, and this in it. It's coming from GMO. Is it GMO?
Yeah.
GMO. And I'm like, well, I'm defeating the purpose, you know. So I'm gonna tell you, Aldi's, they're like maybe $4.30 for a dozen, but they're the best eggs, and you can taste the difference, and you smell the difference too. They're pasteurized, or either the organic cage-free. See, if they're organic cage-free, and that means that what they're feeding them is organic. You know, so they're at least being fed something good. You know what I mean? And not the GMO. So, but also, I have for the I used to couldn't lift this shoulder up, just move this shoulder, and I went to the doctor because I thought, well, maybe the rotisserie.
I didn't talk a lot about rotisserie.
The rotary cuff, I thought something was wrong. And when he x-rayed and everything, he says that, there's nothing wrong. It's probably just inflammation. Literally, inflammation was stopping me from lifting my arm and shoulder. And I would go pick something up and my arm would just fall like this. Or it would hurt, And so I use stevia. And so, like, I don't buy sugar unless I've got to bake for something out, that kind of thing. I don't bake for home. But I use stevia, and I found some organic stevia. But there's two kinds of stevia, right? There's one that starts with D, dextrose. Dextrose in everything is bad. That's processed stuff. And there's one that starts with the E, ethanol or something like that. That is the one that is, and so you're not getting the white sugar. You're not getting sugar per se. You're getting, I think if I'm correct, stevia is more of your natural sweet sugar. It's not a sweetener. It's more of a natural sugar. Research that. It's easier. Honey is good, but you got to get your good honey.
Yeah. A lot of the honey you buy at the store isn't actually really honey.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing.
You got to get real honey.
You got to get real honey. And if you can get the organic, honey, like if you go to one of those farmers markets, you go to a farmers market where it's a local farmer or whatever, then you're getting good honey, but it's. You just got to kind of research, and there's a company, not a company, I'm sorry. His name actually is Bobby Harris, and you can find him on YouTube. And I subscribe. So he teaches me things every day about food. But it's Bobby Harris, but he has an app called Bobby Approved. And it just reads barcodes. It's gonna break your heart when you find out that some of it that you just really won't. It's just but it's just horrible for you. So he looks mostly, and Dr. Ryan was talking about sugar, right? And he looks mostly for the added sugar. It's the added sugar.
Yeah.
So even with your yogurt, If you get yogurt, the Greek yogurt, and it's got the fruit in it, that's going to be your added sugar, to be honest. But, just look at the ingredients, and it's going to say 12 grams or 18 grams. I read some last night. It was 16 grams of added sugar in this little thing. And so if you're trying to get rid of inflammation in your body, Dr. Ryan, I'm sure you agree, we got to drink a lot of good water, too.
Oh, absolutely.
We got to drink a lot of good water. Well, good water for me may not be for you, but just good shoot fire. Shoot fire. Good water is going to be your water. Good water is going to be really spring water out of a glass or a metal container, not plastic. The problem with plastic is that, what it's called, BPA or something like that.
Yeah, plastic really is.
Well, what happens, unfortunately, when you go buy in the store, you don't know how long it was sitting in the factory or wherever. And so you don't know how long you don't know if it got hot, and then they all of a sudden, so when you pick it up, it feels cool, but it could have been sitting somewhere for, 2 or 3 weeks. Hot. And when it gets hot, the plastic releases a chemical in the water. So, but with glass, and I know it costs more, I'm sorry, but with glass, or either, sometimes you can buy it in the metal containers, you don't have that release into your water. So, you know what, sweetheart? Go buy you a case of regular spring water and pray over it.
I mean, you got to remember, like we have to live life, right? Like, you can go down, I think the internet, like, you can go so darn down rabbit holes that you walk around and be like, I'm not even that, I'm not even that, I'm not even that, but thank God that we have a healthy immune system that can fight off stuff. And I do think, like, there's certain things that, like, are unavoidable, unfortunately. Like, they're putting fluoride in the water. That's a whole other thing. Yeah. And, like, it's like you can't even hard to get away from that. Now, there are ways, like reverse osmosis machines and stuff, but they're expensive, and I would love to have all of that. But, like, sometimes you got to make the best decisions that you can, practically speaking. What's that? So a good rule of thumb is drink like your body weight. I think it was a body weight.
Half of your body weight.
Half your body weight in ounces. Well, that's with the protein and stuff too. But typically, and it's not just water. The other thing is, like, salt's not necessarily bad. Like the Himalayan salt's actually really good. Like, we need that. The problem is we have so much of our food, especially processed food, just have.
Oh my goodness.
And the table salt's been stripped of everything. If you think about the water that they used to drink, like in biblical times, it had so many more natural minerals and things in the water, and that when our salt has been completely stripped of all that stuff, and then we just have this table salt. But yeah, so the Himalayan salt is a great way, And
the thing about the Himalayan salt is that it may I don't even know if it costs more anymore. But it may cost a little bit more, but you don't have to use as much. Yeah,
and it's got those other minerals.
And it's got the minerals and everything that you need with the salt.
And by the way, this is 5 pounds of fat. Okay, and this is only 5 pounds.
Is that all?
5 pounds of muscle is actually a lot smaller, but this is actually 5 pounds of fat. And so I used to do the fat dance, like, I've lost, it is crazy when this stuff is spread out, but it's not just, unfortunately, it doesn't just like go in your arm and sometimes it feels that way. But this is like, it can be in our arteries, it can be like just within our whole body, but this is 5 pounds of fat. So when somebody says, I've lost 5 or 10 pounds, like, that's a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. So don't underestimate, like, small beginnings like that. 5 pounds of fat is a huge win. So.
Can I just make one more comment about the eggs?
Yes.
When I'm buying eggs, I always ask, do you have a rooster? Because the rooster, a lot of people don't know this, but the rooster provides the ingredient, the hormone that provides makes lecithin to break down the cholesterol. There's an old book with my husband and I've only ever read this in one book, Faith, Hope, and Seaweed. It was about I think he was a vegan athlete, and he just ate the best, and that's what was it. Well, I guess he had to be vegetarian, not vegan. So he might